What's up everybody, Superlux fan here for another car review. This is of course the 2016 Lexus GS F. Huge thanks to Lexus for providing me with this very sweet GS F to review for you guys today. So about the GS F, well, I absolutely love the way it looks. I know that it has some critics out there, but I think it looks really cool. It's very sharp and aggressive, but that's what all the car manufacturers are going for these days. I think Lexus just took it one step further, and it's controversial, but I think it looks sweet. I love the way the headlights there are very thin. You have the little arrow part there in addition to that wide gaping grille that, you know, some people may think looks like something out of a sci-fi movie or some Halloween movie, but I think it looks really awesome. But you even have like some LFA inspired elements there in the front bumper there with the air dam, and especially here in white, it's really cool looking. I love in the back as well the tinted taillights there and the interesting angle on the exhaust tips, and you know, you have the little carbon fiber bits sprinkled throughout as well on the trunk lid there and on the front bumper, and overall I think it's just a really good looking package. Whereas for the interior of the Lexus GS F, well, it is refreshingly simple, and I really just love sitting in this interior. But anyway, first things first, sitting down in these seats, very cool. I love the red interior in this car. It's really awesome, but I really like the seat shape and design as well. You know, you have some really nice bolstering here. Now, it's not fully adjustable like in some of the competitors, but it does have, you know, your basic adjustability, and they feel pretty good though. I mean, right out of the box, I mean, you know, the bolstering is pretty good, you know, for even a thin guy like myself. They hug you in pretty well, and you can tell that they're special, they're sporty. It's not, you know, anything boring, that's for sure. And thigh bolsters are a little bit on the wide side, but actually really nice and comfortable. So this car, these seats are already set up for a very nice blend between comfort and sportiness, and I like them a lot. Next is the steering wheel in the GS F, which is like many of the other, you know, F Sport models here, a nice small wheel. It has a really nice 9-3 grip. It's honestly a perfect 9-3 grip. Nice little 10-2 notches, and you have, you know, a few assortment of buttons here on the wheel, but nothing overwhelming. And you know, once you figure out what does what, it's very easy to use and very intuitive. You have these paddle shifters behind the wheel that are also pretty nice feeling. They feel a tad cheap, and you know, but they're really nicely placed. And I like that this car still has a cruise control stalk connected to the back of the wheel. Instead of so many steering wheels these days, everyone just puts the cruise control buttons on the wheel itself, and it clutters it up so much. It's nice to just have a little stalk. It may be old-fashioned, but I love that, you know, just to keep the wheel a little bit simpler. Next are the gauges in the Lexus GS F, which are great, like all the other Lexus products currently. I love the digital clusters here, and it's just a really cool, you know, the graphics look very sharp, and I just love the way everything's set up. And so anyway, you have that large digital tachometer right in the middle there, front and center. You have a digital speedometer there within it, as well as a few other, you know, bits of information. And coming over to the right hand side here, you have a nice analog speedometer that's very elegant looking, honestly, and looks like a timepiece or something, really. And then on the left hand side there, you have all kinds of configurable displays there, including, you know, like a G-force meter. There's a torque split there for in between the two rear wheels, and you also have, you know, your basic fuel economy and, you know, vehicle settings and stuff like that. You can do lap times, all kinds of cool stuff there. And so a really nice little thing. I especially love the G-force gauge there, very cool. And so yeah, overall, I mean, I just love these gauges. I mean, the only thing is, you know, the fuel gauges and stuff are kind of small and shoved up in the upper left corner there, but you can still see them perfectly fine, and overall they're just great gauges. There's also a little heads-up display that'll give you your speedometer, speed limit, a few basic things like that. It's so nice to have that nonetheless, but not as full featured as some of the other you know, heads-up display systems out there. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, this is where it's just so refreshingly simple and yet elegant, and I feel like this won't be outdated. You know, it kind of sticks to the basics, and I think that really helps its cause, because you do have, you know, the futuristic stuff like this enormous, massive widescreen 12.3-inch screen up here, which is controlled through this little mouse thing that all the Lexus models use, that I like. A lot of people hate, but I think it actually is really easy to use. But you know, as far as the menus and stuff, that does look a tad dated. It could be a little bit slicker compared to the competition. The maps and stuff are a little underwhelming, but again, it gets the job done. It's good enough. You know, it would be nice to have Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. I'm sure that's coming soon, but isn't present currently. But overall, you know, you can navigate through everything very easily. I like the split screen setup there, like you get in some of the other, you know, competitors as well, and it just makes it nice and handy to look at multiple, you know, displays there at the same time on this very large and beautiful screen there. And then coming down to the rest of the controls here, you have an actual volume knob and an actual tune knob, which you know, stuff like the Cadillac CT-SV and stuff like that does not have, and it's refreshing, because that's honestly, and they feel great, and you know, it's the basic stuff that, you know, again, don't try and reinvent the wheel, keep it as is, and it works great. You do have, you know, a few buttons here for your climate control, but again, very straightforward in the way that it's laid out. I love the little animation too for the temperature whenever you go up and down. It's very lifelike, and you know, it looks like an old little gauge or something, and so just the little touches like that really set it apart for me, and overall I just love the way that's set up. Coming down here, you have your controls for the heated and cooled seats, and you have everything nicely lined in leather here as well, and Alcantara, which is all over. You know, it's up here on top of the dashboard, and you have it here on your palm rest, your hand rest, I suppose, for this little mouse cursor thing, and then it's also on the center armrest as well. So the only one thing that's a glaring flaw in this interior is this enormous gap that you have this for the cup holder cover, and you know, you can push it down so that it's almost flush too. So why there's such a huge gap there, especially when you're competing with the Germans who have, you know, extreme attention to detail and fit and finish, I feel like that would drive a lot of luxury car buyers crazy. And it's kind of, you know, again, a simple fix just to, you know, make that a little bit more snug there. But that's just a little thing that, you know, otherwise the interior is spectacular. I love the way everything is set up. I love the way that everything feels, and overall, just it's a really nice interior. As far as storage space in the GSF, it's pretty good. So you have a large map pocket here in the door, no bottle holder there, but you do have your two cup holders right here in front, and then you have this center armrest, which slides back first, so you can get into a few things here if you'd like. You'll also be exposed to your auxiliary jack and two USB jacks, as well as a power outlet, or you can lift the whole thing up, and then there's this removable coin tray kind of thing, and that's a large and deep cubby there. Honestly, you can fit a good amount of things in there. It's a very versatile and well thought out there, and I really like it. Otherwise, you just have a tiny little coin holder type thing here on the left hand side, and that's about it. So I mean, not an abundance of storage space, especially for, you know, a usable daily driver kind of sedan thing. I wish there was a little bit more, but overall it's still pretty good. Backseat space in the GSF is really pretty spacious and about average with all the other cars in this class. So I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself, I have plenty of leg room there, and then you also have plenty of headroom. The center seat there in the back though is a lot higher up than the outboard two seats, so if you're gonna put a fifth person back there, you're going to want to make sure that they're on the shorter side so their head isn't resting against the roof the whole time. Otherwise though, I mean, it's a really great back seat. Trunk space in the GSF is really remarkable. So I think it's the widest trunk opening I've ever seen on a car I've ever reviewed. Absolutely enormous, and it's a very large usable trunk as well, but that opening is just, like I said, just mind-blowing. But anyway, the trunk itself is actually quite large as well and very accommodating, you know, the seats do not fold down, but there is a little ski pass-through type thing, so you can use that for a little bit of additional versatility there. And but otherwise, like I said, it's a nice large chunk, and I think it'll fit, you know, all your luggage with ease. All right, so start up and go for a drive. Lexus is a very cool and sleek little key here. Of course, this keyless entry and push button start, so you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it roars to life. Alrighty, so first thing you notice in the Lexus GS F is it's very easy to drive and doesn't feel, you know, racy or overly sporty whenever you're first setting off here. You know, in the normal driving mode, you know, the steering weight's nice and light, and you know, everything just, it feels very relaxed and comfortable. Even at low speeds here though, you get a good, nice, healthy V8 rumble, which is always nice to have. But anyway, let's put this into Sport Plus mode, and turn down onto this back road here and see how it does. And here we go. Woo! So this thing is pretty quick. Listen to that! That's got a glorious 5-liter V8 engine. That's 467 horsepower, it's 7,100 RPMs, and then 389 pound-feet of torque. From this 5-liter V8, I'm already gonna love this thing. Listen to that! And this Sport Plus mode is really aggressive. So I'm not even in manual mode. It's just doing its own thing and keeping these RPMs nice and high. And it really makes this car feel like it's in a hurry. So speaking of a hurry, 0 to 60 time is 4.5 seconds, which isn't earth-shattering, but you know, this car has a different ethos than, you know, stuff like the CTS-V. It's not a drag racer. It's just about being a well-rounded, you know, sports sedan. And I can say that, you know, the sound and the power is all exciting enough to make it a fun driver's car. Now there is a disclaimer to this sound, because there is this active sound management thing going on, which does give you some help through the speakers, which you don't really need, I don't think, because this has a 5-liter, you know, V8 engine that's going to sound glorious on its own. And there's a button to turn off active sound management, so we'll turn that off. And you still get a really good sound. So, I mean, you know, this adds maybe a little bit more volume. Yeah, there's a little more volume there with that, but otherwise, and I like extra sound, but I'm just gonna leave it on because I think it sounds great, and I don't care if it's from the stereo, because you still have the real sound going along with it to make it just sound fantastic. But man, this thing, you can tell this engine loves the higher RPMs, and it just pulls like a rocket. Oh man, this is fun. And this is why it's not always about numbers, you know, stuff like the CTS-V, you know, it makes your jaw drop with 640 horsepower. But this is so much fun still, with, you know, only 467 only. Another acceleration. Using the paddles now, and they're pretty quick so far. Anyway, coming up some tighter corners, so we're gonna put the torque vectoring differential into slalom mode, which I'm sure will help us out here. A very cool trick that the GSF has up its sleeve, and wow, does this thing really like to dive into corners in a good way. It's pretty flat. There's a little bit of a lean there, but it sounds really good. It's notifying me of something, I'm not sure what, but this is really great. The brakes feel awesome too. There's a little bit of a dead travel there, but they really have a nice feel once you really get on them. And this thing is just so well put together. What a driver's car, man. And so yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going fast enough probably to even use this torque vectoring differential here, but it's pretty intelligent with the way it doesn't use the brakes. It's just using the engine load to you know, help with this torque vectoring system, and it really handles amazingly well, though, I gotta say. One thing I'm kind of surprised by, though, is just how light the steering still is. Even in the Sport Plus mode, the most aggressive mode here, it still is a little bit lighter, and honestly, it doesn't really load up much. You don't get any kind of additional resistance or anything, and it feels great, though. I do love the steering. It feels really nice. One wonderful thing, though, about just having a good old-fashioned naturally aspirated V8 engine is you have razor-sharp throttle response that is so analog feeling and so natural. And again, everything is just, all these little pieces come together to make a car that just is so gratifying to drive in every way, whether it's straight line, whether it's in the corners. It's a blast. This thing really loves to dance, though, once you can get it open up here. Oh man, this thing's so much fun. And it's actually a little bit tail happy too, especially here in the Sport Plus mode. So as far as grip goes, while we're talking about that, it has 255 wide tires in the front and 275 in the rear, and they're Michelin Pilot Super Sports. So they're sticky, but I mean, it doesn't have an astronomical torque figure, but it still likes to dance around like any good driver's car. I love the rear-wheel drive, basic, you know, setup. This thing is just so much fun. So anyway, I have the GSF here for a whole week thanks to Lexus. So I'm going to drive around all week, you know, check out the sound system and test everything out more, and I'll come back and give you my final impressions. Alright, so I've been driving the Lexus GS F here for about a week now, and It's a really great car. It's kind of surprised me just how good it is, because as many of you know, I absolutely adore the new CTS-V, and that was incredibly fun a few months ago to review. And this car, now living with this for a week versus living with the CTS-V for the week, there are definitely a lot of big differences. Of course, the enormous horsepower difference between the two is the most obvious thing, but it's kind of amazing how this car, I would say, is like 9/10 the fun of the CTS-V while still having, you know, way less horsepower. It's kind of amazing. You know, the whole ethos behind this, I think, is kind of similar to the BRZ mentality. And you know, you look at obviously the BRZ and the Toyota 86 Scion FRS, all those cars, they're enormous amounts of fun, and it's the same price as like a Mustang. It's just a different type of fun. You know, with the Mustang or something like that, you get more power with the V6s and stuff, and you know, they're bigger, heavier cars, but it's, you know, it's just a different type of fun. And I think that same thing applies to this. This is the BRZ of the super sedan segment, is how I'm kind of looking at this car, because it's, you know, the least horsepower of the group. It's probably the lightest of the group as well, just barely over 4,000 pounds. So that has, you know, a really big impact on how this thing drives, because it's just so lightweight, and it's a riot though. I still absolutely adore this thing, especially in Sport Plus mode. I mean, it is so eager, it's so maniacal in the way that it delivers power that it almost kind of it feels kind of like it's a little too sharp almost, and that's what really it says a lot for me. I mean, it takes a lot for me to think that something is too sharp, because I love, you know, super hard edge, sharp, crazy, exciting cars, but this is almost like a little too much, but I love it for it. I wouldn't want it to change, but that's just how extreme this feels when you're driving it, and it's just so satisfying to drive. Especially, you know, I was going around some more corners again yesterday on a really, really windy road with the torque vectoring technology going and everything, and even with the car fully loaded up with 4 people in it, it's still just, it's like a flea the way that it just flies around in corners, and it's just so weightless, and it does such a good job. I mean, it still is a large super sedan. You don't feel like you're driving a BRZ or something like that at all, of course, but it has that different sense to it, where the CTS-V, for example, you have enormous amounts of grip, and that chassis is fantastic and also feels very light on its feet for what it is, but it's also doing that with much wider tires. It's doing that with, you know, all kinds of more advanced aero and all that kind of stuff, whereas this car, you know, none of that has really changed a whole lot, and you know, it looks pretty unassuming. It doesn't, you know, make a statement as much as the CTS-V and stuff like that, but it just works, and it does everything so well, and it's really comfortable too. I have to say, I'm really impressed by just, you know, when you put it in the eco mode and just cruise, it's definitely more comfortable than stuff like the CTS-V, which is a little harder edged, and it still feels super luxurious, very, very nice to drive, and I absolutely adore it for all those things. But having said all that, I still think, you know, there are some ways that it could improve, and some things that I prefer, again, with the CTS-V. I hate to compare it to that car over and over again, because this is, you know, this does have so many other good qualities about it over the CTS-V. For example, the fact that, you know, Lexus has, you know, one of the highest quality ratings, highest customer satisfaction, all that kind of stuff. They're very, very reliable. They don't depreciate, you know, as much as the Cadillacs and stuff like that do, which it goes a long way, especially if this is a car you're going to buy and own for a while. You don't want to lose your shirt on depreciation, and this car, I don't think you're going to ever have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. So, you know, stuff like that is nice, but you know, stuff that the Cadillac has, for example, you know, I like the touchscreen in that. It's just simpler, and Lexus was doing touchscreens for a while too, but then they switched over to this mouse, and this mouse, now I use this same, you know, controller in the Lexus RC350 that I reviewed earlier this year, and I didn't have a problem with it in that, and I think the main reason why is because in that car the screen was smaller. In this, you have this very wide screen display, and you have the split screen thing going on and everything, so there's a little more to control with this mouse, and it wanders around a little bit more, and I think that it makes it a little bit harder to easily use, and I just find myself wishing I could just push something instead of trying to use the controller. The infotainment is definitely a little bit underwhelming. The sound system is great, and the stereo is really nice, you know, for that part of it, but you know, just controlling everything isn't ideal. One thing that the Cadillac and the Lexus both share, though, is not the best fuel economy. Now, this is better than the Cadillac, but not by much. So in my week of driving thing here, I've been averaging, now I've been doing mostly city driving, so, you know, not the kindest on the fuel economy. If I was cruising on the highway, I'm sure I'd get better, but I've been getting 15.2 miles per gallon for my average during my driving, and obviously I've had a bit of a lead foot at times, so that doesn't help. But you know, like the CTSV, which also got pretty low fuel economy figures, I think that was about 14 if my memory serves me correctly. You know, you would think that with less power and naturally aspirated and lighter, you would think that this would be able to eke out better fuel economy numbers than it does. So that's you know, another slight disappointment here of the Lexus that I was, you know, expecting it to be a little bit better with. So the Lexus basically comes fully loaded at the $86,000 or so price, versus the Cadillac, that's just the price of entry, and the one that I was reviewing, you know, had a good amount of options on it, but that one was still over $100,000. So, you know, I mean, maybe for someone spending 86, jumping up to 100 isn't that big of a deal. I don't know, but you know, it is nice to have the customization, but at the same time, it's nice to not have it in some ways in this as well. And so again, that just comes down to personal preference for, you know, whether you want to have a million options and, you know, what you could afford and whatnot. But it is nice that you get this car with everything that comes with it, all for the basic, you know, 86,000 bucks. So in conclusion though, I mean, I think it's a great value for what you get. I think it's a hilarious amount of fun, and I really do like this car a lot. I still think, you know, the CTSV would still be my choice, just because I'm a traditional old school American that loves the additional power. And you know, to me, I think the Cadillac still handles mind-blowingly well for, you know, what it is. And you know, I think this is a great option though for those that, you know, like I said, don't want the CTSV for whatever reason, or, you know, if you're just looking for something a little bit different, because the CTSV is a popular choice among super sedans and whatnot. And I would certainly, I think, take this over the German stuff, just because it's refreshingly different, and you know, you'll stand out from everyone else's M5 and S6 and all that kind of stuff. And you know, it is nice that they've stuck with a naturally aspirated rear-wheel drive thing, which is, you know, really rare these days, as sad as that is. And you know, so it's a really great car. And yeah, I think Lexus did an excellent job, and I really respect and appreciate their approach to finesse and not making a muscle car out of a super sedan, since that's what everyone else wants to do. And overall, yeah, I really like the car. So well done, Lexus. Huge thanks to them for sending me this to review for you guys this week. Let me know your thoughts on the GSF, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.